Hey folks, it's Fernando doing a video for the Modern Survivalist, and this is going to be an extended video. I'm going to be going into detail here regarding everyday carry, regarding EDC, trying to explain why each piece of kit has been selected over the years. I mean, I've been working with pretty much the same setup for over a decade easily, and yeah, maybe 15 20 years. Yeah, it kind of gets depressing to see how many years have gone by, but in all honesty, the basic setup has been changed rather little, upgrading depending on the technology available. Whenever a clearly better product comes up, that's something that happens a lot with cell phones. I mean, you don't have to be changing every year, but whenever something honestly provides much more tools, much more capability than the previous version, then it's reasonable to update. Now, this is going to be a longer video. If it's a two-part video, so be it. But again, trying to explain in detail each and every choice. So let's get to it. Here I have the basic setup that pretty much every person has with them, when at least any guy going about his day will have. You will have your wallet, you will have a cell phone, and you will have your keys. Every person pretty much has those. Depending on location, there's also some specific items that most people have. For example, in very bright, sunny weather locations, sunglasses are pretty much mandatory. Where I come from in Argentina, very much like a bright tropical climate, yeah, pretty much everyone would have one of those, and if you don't have them, you miss them. Same thing here. I'm in a location where it's very bright, very sunny, so you definitely need those. I learned to appreciate also having my eyes protected. Again, going back to that modern survival mentality of every single decision being maximized in terms of how useful it could be, both on daily basis and especially in a more of a worst case scenario. If I'm wearing sunglasses, the way my mind works is, if I'm wearing sunglasses, I'm going to be having the best possible ones, and to my mind, the best possible ones is the one that provides not only protection from the sun, which is on itself pretty important, but also protecting one of the most fragile parts of the human anatomy, which is your eyes. And it's critical as well. Anything that moves towards your eyes at very high speed and puts that in danger should be addressed. So if I'm going to be having this in my face all day long, I want it to provide protection as well. So these end up becoming my sunglasses, my shooting glasses when I'm in the range, outdoors. If I'm using something, a drill or doing something where eye protection is advised, these are the ones that end up in my face as well. The nice thing about these ones, these are Wiley X revolvers, is that they're not too dark, so the transition between indoors and outdoors does not affect that much. It's very nice in that regard. Over the years, I've stuck with those. I don't know how many years now, but easily 5, 6, 7 years probably, and some. I've tried others. I have other sunglasses as well. These ones have great peripheral vision. You're not sacrificing that much. I mean, it's very little that you end up losing. All those little things are the ones that I look for when making each and every decision. So in terms of your wallet, all right, every guy will have a wallet. I try to have one that has lots of slots for cards. I end up with a lot of cards, especially in countries where for each firearm you have a different card. You end up piling up a lot of cards very fast. So that's a thing. And yeah, you have your credit card. You have your lots of other things that I want to keep there. And this is basically the same wallet as that one. The only difference is that the one I'm using now, has that pocket there for coins. Other than that, it's the same thing, and it has to be one of the wallets that has the most room for cards. And also in that this position where I'm not risking them falling off the wallet, which with the ones that have cards going in this direction, it's a little bit more likely to happen. Actually, it happened to me before. That's why I'm no longer going for that kind of wallet. Now, again, thinking of in terms of practicality, in terms of strategic advantage of your wallet, if you want to be looking at it that way. I come from Argentina, where crime was a huge problem, still is. That just sticks with you. And for example, this was my wallet for years. I still like it a lot. I think it's funky, weird in its own way, and I like having that pocket there for the coins, which at least a few coins for me is nice to have. So this was it for a long time. Now, looking at it from a very objective point of view, in Argentina, this wallet would have a couple problems. First of all, it's very bright, very visible. In Argentina, you try to have, and I'm saying Argentina, and the same goes for any high crime location. Doesn't matter if it's in the United States, if it's anywhere else. But whenever you're dealing with crime, you want to have a wallet that it's just as inconspicuous as possible. A black wallet is pretty much ideal. Small black wallet, you just bring it out, you open it, pay for it. And now when you're opening, you have this thing happening here. It's noisy, all right? It's a bright, noisy wallet. Now, why did I use it for so many years? Well, I was no longer living in Argentina, so outrageous, violent crime was no longer one of my main concerns. Actually, what was one of my main concerns was forgetting my wallet or dropping it or losing it. And for that, a bright wallet works best. So, you have to understand what your priorities are, what you need, depending on the situation that you're in. Am I planning to move to Argentina anytime soon? Well, not really, but this presents those advantages. Also, it's more of a serious wallet. I felt sort of like a little kid with this, with a Velcro thing going on, and maybe time to grow up a little bit. But between that being so small and such, just happy with this so far. In terms of your cell phone, I mean, why EDC your cell phone like every other human being does? I mean, for all the same reasons. A huge, powerful tool in terms of communication, of information access. You even have a flashlight built into these, or a radio in some cases. A small little compact computer in your hand and phone. I mean, it would be stupid really not to. Ideally, thinking of maximizing the potential usefulness, the strategic and tactical advantage of your cell phone, well, you would be looking at having a cell phone that's big enough so as to be useful, small enough so as to be practical, a cell phone that is waterproof, impact proof. Those things would be really the way in which you maximize. And maybe that's what I'm going to be moving forward with in the future when I replace my old cell phone. So far, it's really not waterproof, but impact proof. It's been fantastic. With this OtterBox Defender case, I would have broken this phone 4 or 5 times already if it wasn't because of this. I mean, dropping it so many times. As long as the battery is good, in terms of camera, of processing power of the CPU in the phone, really there hasn't been any huge leaps in terms of technology so as to justify something like that, so as to justify changing it. So that's basically why I'm sticking with this. But again, going back to the philosophy of EDC, even in the typical stuff any average normal person would carry. Maybe for the average guy, an iPhone is fancier, it's more of a status symbol. For a person that has a different philosophy and includes modern survivalism in his daily routine and his way of life, those are priorities. A phone that is powerful, but it's also tough, that's strong, waterproof would be key as well, especially in certain places. But the way you just go about it. The thing about having coins, why is it that I like having them? Well, I didn't start preparing yesterday. It's not, I mean, survivalism didn't just hit me yesterday and I just got into this. But in the old days, I'm thinking like, I don't want to say 30 years ago because I really don't want to be feeling that old, but yeah, a couple decades ago, any serious survivalist would have had with them several quarters, the American version, or just coins or tokens or whatever it is that you needed. And why is that? Well, so as to take a bus if you needed, so as to make phone calls. Back in the day, you didn't have cell phones. You had public phones, and so as to use those public phones, and sometimes it was crucial to make a phone call, so as to know someone that you had a car accident, that you had problems, that you would be going home late because of whatever. Having the ability to make that phone call was key. Or vending machines that didn't accept money back in the day because you bought a candy bar with 10 cents, that sort of thing. Well, coins came in handy. The thing is that still coins are useful and just handy to have. Right now, for example, for parking, I still need coins. The machines here just work on coins, so have a few of them. Now, for example, this one maybe not so great in terms of not having that, but you could probably throw a couple coins there, like in there, and just fold it like that. Maybe a possibility. Again, basically just the idea of the way you go about all this stuff. And then your keychain, all right, your keys. If you're going to be opening that door when you come back home, you're going to be having your keys. If you're going to be using your car, you're going to be having keys. Now, the little Fallout Dweller guy is really not practical at all, doesn't do anything. The little LED button light does, and this is something I encourage everyone to have. Not the Fallout guy unless you really like that, but the little keychain lights. It's just huge how useful light can be, and it really takes up no space whatsoever. And if you're looking at a very little first step to get into, this would be it. Can't believe 11 minutes and I already have. This is definitely going to be a two-part video. Now, as you start upgrading, and one of the things I say, I've said over the years, is that your keychain is maybe your first line of actual EDC gear. And these days they've miniaturized everything enough so as to have practical, useful tools in a very compact format. Now, I have a light that, I don't know, today I'm feeling a little bit old school or whatever, but the old Surefire, the first tactical flashlight, the old Surefires, I think those were the G2s, those were 100 lumens. And now you have over 100 lumens in a little keychain flashlight that uses a single AAA battery. That's just insane. In my day, I didn't bother carrying a flashlight because, well, I had, the solitaire. I had that and carried that quite a bit, to be honest, but it was so unuseful in terms of the battery lasting nothing and getting dim from the get-go. You would just use it a couple of minutes. It was really not useful better than nothing, but even the button light like this one is 10 times brighter than anything you could get out of that little solitaire mag light. So that would be the first thing that I recommend starting with. And then the Mini Champ, this has been around for quite some time, I guess. Just a very nice little tool, and lots of little tools in there that always have a function for Phillips screwdriver, for cutting, for the tweezers as well are very useful. This is one of the little tools I've recommended over the years because I've gone through a couple of them already. Just fantastic to have them. You have your pen as well. You have scissors. A number of tools. I've done specific videos about this one. Just great. The charger for your phone, I think it's important to have one. Someone was asking in the previous video about this. This is a titanium lighter, and yes, it uses the Zippo fuel, and it should light, yeah. And no, it doesn't dry up nearly as fast as a Zippo because it has that O-ring, which makes it last for several months, even 5-6 months. It's not unusual for it to last that long. A little USB drive technology again, we cannot ignore how useful it is. In the previous video, someone asked about the Pico pry bar. What is this little pry bar useful for? I mean, it's gone months that I felt like I'm not using it, but then all of a sudden it just saves the day. That's why it's still here, because over the years it just proved itself. Is it a big pry bar? Definitely not. Look at the size of this thing. But whenever I need to pry something, usually this does enough. I mean, a stuck drawer or something, even pulling a nail, it usually does enough. It's not great, it's not a big pry bar, but it's useful for that. For scrapping, and this edge is sharp enough that many times, just for opening packages and that sort of thing. And it eventually ends up saving the blade, because many times if you have a bigger folder, you maybe use the folder, but this saves the tip of a knife, especially a smaller one like the Victorinox, which is just not capable of prying anything. So that would be the basic setup any average person has, and the way at least I go about it in terms of upgrading and getting the most out of that. In terms of watch, I'm a big believer in solar watches, because not replacing the battery for me is a thing. It's an advantage. And as you see, these are all metal bracelet watches, and there's a reason for that. I bought this watch several decades ago. This was my first solar. This was my first real deal watch in terms of a serious watch that I bought for myself when I was almost not even 20 years old. So this watch has at least a couple decades on it, and still on the original battery. For all of you guys that are just discovering solar watches and are wondering how long does a solar watch battery last, well, this Citizen Eco Drive titanium watch. It was also the first watches made of titanium. This was a quite expensive watch, but I had used Casio watches before, and what always happened was that the rubber band ended up breaking. And I'm tired of hearing all the excuses about, well, you replace it, well, this and that, and no, they're durable. Well, I mean, I lost way too many watches to this rubber band eventually drying up and snapping. And sure, you can replace it when it breaks, and it's cheap to do so. But the thing is that when the rubber band in your watch breaks, you usually lose the watch as well. So you end up losing your watch along with it, and that's that's a serious screw up in terms of how useful it can be when it fails. When it fails, it just gets lost. At least that's what's happened to me way too many times. So not losing any more watches, and I think that metal is the way to go. So I have my G-Shock here with the metal bracelets, the titanium here, and the one that I wear also same thing. Very comfortable, very light as well. Now, one of the things that you hear from people is that, why carry a watch because I have one in my cell phone? Well, only bums check their time in a cell phone. Gentlemen use watches. And yeah, kind of a joke, but really, I mean, I at least find it annoying to check the time on my cell phone. And besides that, with a watch like this, you have some serious technology involved. You have your altimeter, you have your compass, you have your tide graphic, you have the barometric pressure chart. Done videos about this watch, but it's just a fantastic tool in your wrist, and so just sticks with me over the years. And maybe one day when something better, nicer comes along, or I break or lose it, will be replaced. Moving on towards one of the first things any person that's considering EDC starts looking for is, of course, a knife. So when it comes to knives, you have a ton of options, and some folks are more classic than others. And yeah, you can get away with having a little Victorinox knife. This is an executive. This has been with me again for several years. I've used this when I had to wear a suit in a past life and couldn't get away with something bigger. But and yeah, it's the blade is nice enough for little cutting tasks. Nothing too excessive, but yeah, it does cut. You have your orange peeler tool thing there going on. You have your tweezers. It's a nice little gentleman's executive a pocket knife? Sure enough, yes it is. Even better, a bigger one. I mean, I've carried this knife, especially if you're limited. You always have to consider your the environment that you're in, what you can actually carry or not. Sometimes there's a legal reason that you cannot carry something bigger, or a blade that locks. Now, I think that a blade that does not lock is just dangerous. That's at least the way I see it. And you know, if I can get away with having something that actually locks, then more power to me. But if not, a big Swiss Army knife like this, German Army knife by Victorinox. This is a nice slip joint folder, a nice Victorinox knife. You don't have a ton of different tools, but most of them are pretty useful, and it's way more handy than not even having them. You have your punch, and every tool has a good size to it, especially, you know, the blade for a slip joint. If a pocket knife works nicely, this actually has a lot of wear in it. Your big screwdriver, it's tough enough so as to be a little bit of a prying tool. I would use the little primer in the keychain instead, but you have a saw that works. You have everything that basically works, and that's great. Now, you don't have to waste a ton or spend, you know, not waste, because sometimes you actually get what you pay for, but you don't have to spend a ton of money to get a decent, sturdy folder. This is a Kershaw, I think this is the lifter model, maybe messing the name up, but I've done a review about this before. I think it's like 20 bucks, and it's crazy how much of a knife you can get. It has assisted opening. You have a blade that it's not the greatest steel ever. Actually, it's quite bad. Maybe one of the worst things this knife has going for it is the steel. It's not fantastic by any means. But with honest use, without abusing it too much, you could pry a little bit with it. Just be careful with the tip, because in my experience, this same knife, I had broken the tip before. So be as gentle as you could possibly be. But you know, even in a self-defense role, this is a very decent knife for the blade size, especially with that recurved edge, the tanto tip. Very, very nice knife. Deploys very fast with that assisted opening. You have your clip there. You have your frame lock mechanism. You have even the button that stops it from overextending. You know, and yeah, for more money you can have better things. Now, I like to differentiate between having a multi-tool and a knife and a folder. I think that you should have a tough folder besides having a multi-tool, and that's what I usually have with me. Now, you know, in terms of still talking about here about folders, having them, again, the modern survivalist idea of maximizing every single piece of kit. Spyderco Endura. This is the Endura 4, is it? 4-position pocket clip. It's slim enough. If you want something that's not very obtrusive, that's lightweight in your pocket, and you don't want to have something too big, but still have fantastic steel, still have a great little folder. Well, maybe not so little. I think it's like 4 inches, but very capable knife. You have very good steel. You have that saber grind that makes much more sense to me than the full flat ground, which sacrifices rigidity and toughness of the blade for no good reason, really, because full flat ground knives should be only in kitchens. Those are chef knives, as we used to know them back in the day. But again, a sturdy folder, and even in a very reasonable price range, you have the Voyagers from Cold Steel. These are knives I've always recommended and still do, especially now that they've moved to even better steel. You have a knife that's very comfortable, has great, you know, retention on the handle. This has been very well designed. It stops your hand from slipping forward. You have a classic tip, or you have the Tanto ones. You know, this is a kind of knife that you can really put some punishment into, especially with the triad lock. The triad lock is the strongest locking mechanism in most knives today. There's some gimmicks out there, but really, for folders today, this is honestly the best way in which you can go. The toughness of the triad lock mechanism has been proven time and again, and it makes for the most strong locking mechanism. Is the locking mechanism all there is to a knife? Of course not. And that's why I carry zero tolerance Emerson myself, which has the frame lock, which is not as tough as a triad lock, but it has other things going for it. It has much better steel. It has a self-deployment mechanism that I've learned to appreciate in very short time, and overall just fantastic construction. So it's not all there is to it, but you can really not go wrong with a zero tolerance. Now, if you're looking at maximizing your folder as much as you could possibly go, especially for one that's going to be used for defensive purposes, you know, something like this, the Cold Steel Voyager Vaquero Large. It's a recurved edge, very narrow tip, stupid full flat grind, and a tactical blade, which makes no sense, but you know, still, because of the size of it, it compensates for that bad decision, because you have a ton of steel, even if it's poorly configured in a full flat blade. But you know, and I've carried this. I mean, the previous version of the Vaquero Grande, I carried in Argentina for years. Now I'm sticking to the local laws and such, which I think it's like 4 inches, and so that's what I have with me. But you know, and it's really not bad to have one of these, but if you could have something like this is something that I would definitely go for, and I have gone for it where and when legal to do so. All right, so different options in terms of having a folder. Why would you want to have a knife with you? Going back to the philosophy of EDC itself. Well, I mean, so many reasons for cutting everything and anything that comes across. And sure, yeah, I could be cutting envelopes and making sandwiches all day with just the slip joint Swiss Army knife. Now the thing is, if I ever need something more, if I ever need to go beyond that, if I ever need to chop through a chunk of wood, a 2x4, because that's the only way I'm getting out of some place that I'm caught in after a collapsed building, after I was locked somewhere. I mean, use your imagination, but always keep in mind things that have happened before. One of the things that has happened before is people getting caught in an escalator, one of those electric ladder things in the mall, or machinery. I actually know a couple people that got clothes or hair caught in machinery and ended up losing a chunk of their skin because of that. You know, it's stuff that happens. If it has happened before, it can happen again. Something that's handy, something that's quick to deploy, something that's sharp, right? You can use this to cut a piece of rope that needs to be cut. I think it was last year, I think it happened in Ireland, that a kid died in a school playground because they were doing repairs and some pieces of rope were left by the workers there. The kid tangled his neck with a piece of rope, slide on the playground, on the slide, and he was found there dead, hanging from the neck on the slide of the playground. Awful tragedy. But if you had a knife with you and reached it in time, you would have needed something to cut that rope from that kid's neck. Okay, self-defense as well? Absolutely. I mean, yeah, if someone is on top of you, fighting, trying to kill you, trying to rape you, you need something to defend yourself. This is actually a great defensive tool as well, especially in very close range. All right, then you have options for the Delica from Spyderco. It's a great option for a lady, and it's a heck of a sharp knife that's quick to deploy and can be carried in your pocket. Okay, again, all those little things that I at least try to keep in mind. I'm gonna be cutting here so as to not make it too long, so as to not make it over 30 minutes. But stay tuned for part 2 of this video.